Tim Petrowich here for Dateline Marion with Marion head football coach Kerry Martin, and Wildcats entering we're beyond the midway point now. 5 games in the books, and last week you squeaked by with a 29-28 win over Mount Vernon. And we've talked week in and week out about once you get into that conference schedule, you never know what's going to happen. We've talked this year in particular about the fact there seems to be a lot more parity in the South 7 Conference. And when the team that's winless comes up and plays the 2-time defending champ to a 1-point game and forces them to make 2 key defensive stops in the fourth quarter, that kind of proves what you were talking about.
Yeah, it does. And, it's kind of the trademark of the conference the last couple of years. And you kind of throw the records out and you got to play the games. And, the last couple of years we've seen that numerous times. We talked about it last week. It happened last year to some teams that were at the lower end of the conference standings. We're knocking off teams at the upper end. And it happened to us. It happened to Carbondale. It's happened to different people. So you got to come to play, and the question is, are you ready for your opponent's best game? It seems like every week we're getting the best out of people, and you can expect that when you've been kind of at the top the last couple of years or towards the top. And so we're expecting every week to get everybody's best, and it should be that way. And that's how we should prepare ourselves in practice and in all of our preparation to play other teams' best. And I'm sure Althoff is thinking the same thing.
Mount Vernon is the kind of a team that we've seen this the last few years. In fact, 2 years ago they came in here, and it was more of a one-sided game, but they hung around for a little while. Yeah. You had to pull away from them, and then they left this game and won 3 games in a row after this. And so this does seem to be kind of a turning point game for Mount Vernon every year.
It's exactly right. We said that last year, that after we played them the last 2 years, they played better the remaining half of the season. And so whatever we do, we bring out the best, I think, in Mount Vernon, and Coach Shaner had them ready, and I think it's a real testimony to a young coach who's building a program, and he's got them believing, and the lower-level kids are playing well. So they're going to be a team to be reckoned with, I think, in the next few years in the conference, and they gave us a great ball game.
You have said continually that teams will game plan to keep the ball out of your hands. When you got the ball the first time on Friday night, it took you 2 plays to go 60 yards and score.
Right.
You had 9 offensive plays the rest of the first half, and it was 7-6 at halftime.
Yeah.
And so Mount Vernon did an effective job of keeping their hands on the football.
They did. Game plan, I thought, was worked to perfection. If you had to pick a game plan for Mount Vernon to use to beat us, that was it. Heavily run the ball, keep the ball out of our hands, occupy the clock, speed the game up by using clock, taking your time on your play calling. Break our rhythm. We had trouble finding a rhythm because we hadn't had the football, and so I thought it was a very good game plan. Sometimes people plan on doing that, like I'm sure Harrisburg did. We were able to score enough early, took them out of their plan, but Mount Vernon was able to do it for 4 quarters and almost enough to win.
And you could see even in the first quarter, Clayton Reeves walks up to the line of scrimmage and he watches for the umpire to start the countdown for the delay penalty, and snapped it with about 3 seconds left on the play clock every single time, even in the first quarter.
Yeah, well, it was, as I've said, part of the game plan, and I think it was a smart game plan on their behalf. I mean, they knew they could limit our possessions, and if they could score a few points early, like they did, they could try to break our rhythm a bit and wear our defense down. Our defense, I think, got tired because they'd been on the field so much. And so good game plan. Fortunately, we did enough to win the ball game. I think they won every statistical category except one, and that's points scored.
Coach, if someone went to you before the game Friday and said, you're going to complete 2 passes for 6 yards, what would you have said about your chances?
I hope we rushed for 300 or 400 yards, because our only chance would have been to have a great night rushing the ball, given the fact that we didn't have a passing game, or chose not to use the passing game very much. And Henry, fortunately, had a great ball game for us and made some big runs, and I think John Dalton made a few big runs as well. And offensive line made some big plays, some big blocks. But it was a strange night, a very bizarre night in my coaching career to see the statistics stand out like that. I think Henry had more rushing yards than we had total yards as a team, which is a statistic you're going to be hard-pressed to find a winning side, winning victory of a situation where your one running back has outrushed the entire team's total yards. Kind of a weird thing, but as I said, final category, points scored is the one that matters the most. And certainly we feel like there are signs still that our play is not where it needs to be. The last 2 weeks we've not had our best football on the field, and we're working diligently to try to fix that.
We've talked about players who don't get a lot of mention, and I think that one that deserves some mention this week is David Acree.
Yeah.
The huge stop where he stood up the kid on the 2-point conversion.
Right.
He made the stop on the 4th down late in the game, and you don't talk a lot about the linemen in the defense because they're the guys that get in the way so linebackers and defensive backs can make tackles, but he made 2 big plays.
He did. David had some big plays for us, and then David's becoming that kind of player for us at key times, making big plays, and he came up big for us. I got to also mention Drake Grinnell, sophomore kicker.
Oh, absolutely.
He's 3 for 3 on extra points, and then we got the 2-point conversion on the penalty that moved it to 1.5 yards, and we went for 2, and those extra points proved crucial in our win. And he really kicked it well. There wasn't any question about whether they were going through or not. Sophomore stepped up big, and so kind of a night where some unsung people outside of some of the bigger name players that have been big every week for us, to see Drake and David Acree and Troy Slinkard and some other kids play big for us was pretty exciting.
You talk about Grinnell and the kicking game, especially extra points, has been an adventure so far this year. And those kicks were very solid. You know, they were kicks that looked like kicks in the past with the Colton Kings and Sean Nurnbergers and some of those.
I agree. And he's worked very hard at it. You know, he's a straight-on kicker with a square-toed shoe and has practiced at it, and his hard work is paying off, and we're real proud of him. And you know, I think the other side of it, too, is that we had, I think Hunter Odom on defense played a good ball game for us at the safety position. And I thought our offensive line battled and did a really good job against a pretty good-sized Mount Vernon defensive line. And so we've noticed in the film our receivers, even though they weren't involved in the game, they did a great job of blocking downfield, helping spring Henry to some pretty long runs.
You turn your attention to Althoff, and this is a team that a lot of people think could even go as low as 2A in the playoffs, and that simple fact alone makes them a potential threat to win a smaller school state championship. So they're a pretty good football team. They played some much bigger schools on their schedule, and they're definitely going to be coming into this game stinging after a last play defeat last week against Centralia.
Yeah, they're in a good situation as far as if they can they become a playoff team and they go 2A, they could be a real force. Talking to some area coaches just last night about the prospect of them being a 2A or 3A football team based on the schedule they played of Belleville West and Collinsville and Marion and, you know, the different conference teams. They could be tough. And they're a very good football team competing in a 5A schedule and competing very well. And you're right, they're coming off a very tough last-minute loss. Second year in a row they've played Centralia tooth and nail right to the end. And they've come up short both times. And so we know we're going to their place, and we expect them to be carrying a little of that anger and frustration and try to take it out on Marion a little bit.
It's a little bit different situation now. They didn't really have a home game last year.
Right.
They've got a new facility with the field turf now, and so a little bit of a different atmosphere perhaps than playing at Althoff in previous years.
Yeah, I think Lindenwood Stadium has gotten a makeover. You know, as far as the turf, the fans will notice it's a strip of 5-yard strip of gray and a 5-yard strip of maroon and gray and maroon and gray and maroon. It's an interesting pattern. The stadium has been renovated. I think locker rooms, sidelines, seats, and everything. It's going to look different, I think, when our fans get there. But we're excited about, you know, getting on the road. And to our kids, we try to make it kind of a little adventure. You know, we like to go to some new places and play in some different stadiums on new surfaces. And we're excited about it. It's we've had good success there. And I know it's we're looking forward to seeing the upgrade they've got there. I know Coach Turner's excited about it. So we're looking forward to it and looking forward to the challenge of a very good Althoff team.
And over the years, this Althoff-Marion game has not lacked for excitement, has it?
No, it's been close every year. I mean, we've had a lot of great ball games, a lot of games involving big plays. I just thought about that, talked about it with my staff over the weekend, how many games have come down to a punt return or a big touchdown catch or a goal line stand that they put up against us in 2006. So there's a lot of excitement in these ball games. Maybe one of the best games played in this school's history was played out here in 2007. 50-46 last-minute win by Marion. First time I think they had beaten Althoff, at least here for sure. And so, yeah, these ball games against them have been dogfights. They've been exciting, and I'm sure this one will be the same way.
Even a couple years ago when you went up there and it was a close game and they were driving and had the fumble and Marcus Green picked it up and ran it 90-plus yards for a touchdown. It was a momentum turner, but always big plays like that. It seems that this game is really exciting.
Yeah, 2 years ago they outplayed us in the first half, and we had a 13-0 lead at halftime. And we had really two big plays, a Shaquille Ivy run of about 90 yards and a Marcus Green fumble recovery for about 90 yards were the differences in the first half. Those two big plays gave us a 13-0 lead. I was 13 at halftime. And we went into halftime thinking, how are we ahead in this ball game? They have driven the ball up and down the field and failed to score, and we hadn't driven the ball at all but had 2 scores. And in the second half, we got on track and had a real good second half against them. But these games have been very unpredictable. Last year we were down 2 touchdowns here at halftime and came back and won by 2 scores. I believe that's right, 2 scores. But they've been tough games, hard-fought, physical games, and that's kind of their nature of play. That's been ours, and ought to be exciting.
They've got a couple of weapons that people will be familiar with. The quarterback, Mertens, I think, is just a junior this year.
Yeah, he is.
Played a lot last year, and he's doing some things. Hawthorne, an outstanding runner, and then they've got a defensive player who's verbally committed to the University of Illinois.
Yeah, they've got some really talented players. Their middle linebackers about as good a middle linebacker as there is in the southern part of the state. So they have a lot of very key individual players we have to be aware of, and you mentioned them. And we're well aware of that. You can see them on film. It doesn't take long to watch the film and find them. I mean, they're out there. And so, Althoff has been like that, from Jason Ford and Tommy Davis to Fink at quarterback, and just the number of players they've been able to put on the field, the Sonnenbergs, and we know we've got every year you're going to face a marquee player. They've got some Division I players every year that stand out and go on to play college football that we've got to make preparations for. We've got a game plan for.
And obviously you don't want to give anything away, but I'm sure you found a few things you think you can probably get the offense going again and step it up a little bit.
Well, we have to. I mean, the first 3 weeks of the season we just played outstanding offensive football, and the last 2 weeks we've struggled a bit. When you watch the film, the struggles aren't quite as bad, I think, as I anticipate. There's a lot of good things happening, but we're not finishing. We're driving and not finishing. We're driving and making a bad decision on a throw, or making a great decision on a throw and not making the catch. And those things keep drives going. Those things create another set of downs to go on, and we're just not finishing right now. If I had to put my finger on the biggest problem, that's it. And at times we're throwing the ball well, at times we're rushing the ball well, but it's the ability to finish right now has caught up with us a little bit against better teams, and we got to finish this week.
How important was it in last week's game to not play as well as you could and still come out with a win?
Well, I think those are the ball games you've got to win. I mean, when you're playing well, there's a good chance you're going to come out with a victory. I think what separates the good teams from the average teams is that ability not to play your best and still find a way to win. Now, if you continue not playing your best, it'll catch up with you. Hopefully we got out of last week with a win, and we learned something from it, and we'll get better from it the last 4 weeks of the season. Because I think the toughest part of our schedule begins this Friday.
Belleville Althoff this Friday up at Lindenwood. Coach Kerry Martin of the Marion Wildcats for Dateline Marion. I'm Tim Petrowich.